Welcome back to the Anundle Model Farm on a beautiful winter's day. It's the 25th of July, midwinter here. We're excited to start putting in our mixed vegetable demonstration. But let's talk first about what's led up until today. We actually started preparing for today back in January. What happened in January? So we knew that we would need high quality compost. And so in January we made our first compost pile here at the model farm. And now we've got finished, beautiful, high quality compost for planting. It smells sweet. That's the humic acid in there, pure fertility. And we're using this to make sure that our vegetables get all the food that they need. The other things that we've done is we've made sure that we've got access to water. So we've got water down at the model farm. And then thirdly, we made sure that we had a plan for blanket. Now, you need to have the soil covered all the time. You can go and cut a blanket and bring it into your garden, into your field. What we did, rather, is a few months ago, we planted a cover crop. And that grew up, and we cut the cover crop right where we were going to plant the vegetables later. And we've got an in situ or in place cover ready to go. So there's a number of different things that you need to keep in mind when growing vegetables. Vegetables are heavy feeders compared to maize or corn. That's why we're using compost and quite a bit of it for the vegetables. Vegetables cannot tolerate being in waterlogged conditions, so if your soil doesn't drain properly or you have marshy conditions, you're going to need to use raised beds. The other thing about vegetables, every different type has different needs. Some are light feeders, some medium, some heavy feeders, and so you need to have a resource at hand that lets you know how much compost to use because of the different needs of those vegetables. Every different vegetable also has a different spacing requirement. And so when we go to plan the garden, we know how many seed and seedlings we need because we know the spacings within the row and the spacings between rows, and each vegetable is different that way. The last thing I want to say briefly about vegetables is you need to have a rotation plan. If you plant the same type of vegetable in the same place every season, you're going to for sure have pest and disease issues. So there are different methodologies for rotations. The one that we use is very simple. We divide our garden into 3 sections. Section 1 is one category of vegetables. We call it fruit veg. The vegetables that grow above the ground that you pick and eat but not leaf. That's the first type. The second type is leafy greens, your spinach, lettuce, kale. It also includes your brassicas, your cauliflower, cabbage, broccoli. And then the third type is your root vegetables. Clearly your beets, your onions, carrots, those kinds of things. So those are the 3 sections, and then every 6 months those sections rotate. Okay? And then within the 6 months, if a vegetable finishes, we put a different kind of vegetable in it, but within the same category for that 6 months. And then after 6 months we change the big sections and replant the whole garden. So our inputs for planting this vegetable garden are free to make. Our first input is wood ash. This came out of our fireplace. We've been burning wood in our fireplace in the winter to keep warm, and we sieve the wood ash. We put a little bit of wood ash. There's different dosages depending on what you're doing, but the purpose of this wood ash mainly is to correct the pH, the acidity of the soil. So most soils in Africa, most soils are acidic or can be acidic, and if they are, sweetening with some wood ash helps that soil release the nutrients for the plants. And then the second input, most importantly, is homemade compost. We've made this ourselves with dry, woody, and green components and manure. Compost is incredible at moisture retention. It's incredible at buffering pH if your soil is acidic, and it's full of bacteria and fungus that's beneficial for the soil microbiology. It's full of all kinds of micronutrients and is a good nitrogen source for your plants. So if you don't have compost, you can start, it's no reason to not start planting. You can use manure. If you use manure, you're going to be using a different methodology. You're going to be digging a furrow or a hole, a planting station, putting your manure at the bottom of that furrow or the bottom of that planting station, covering it with a minimum of a 3 centimeter soil separation layer, because young seedlings will get burned by manure. So it's more work, but you can do it. And if that's what you're going to do, that's fine. Get started, but also have a plan for making compost, because nothing beats compost. The Farming God's Way vegetable guide has a vegetable by vegetable how-to, step-by-step how-to, kind of like a recipe book. Different if you're using manure or low volume compost versus high volume compost sheet composting like this. You can follow it step by step in the guide.